Senator Elissa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow.
I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
Like us. You all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law
or our Constitution.
We know this is hard
and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army,
or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
the American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans.
Six Democratic lawmakers of seditious behavior punishable by death. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Let's be clear about what the president is responding to, because many in this room want to talk about the president's response, but not what brought the president to responding in this way. You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspired together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States military, to active duty service members, to members of the national security apparatus, encouraging them to defy the president's lawful orders. The sanctity of our military rests on the chain of command. And if that chain of command is broken, it can lead to people getting killed. It can lead to chaos. And that's what these members of Congress who swore an oath to abide by the Constitution are essentially encouraging. We have 1.3 active duty service members in this country. And if they hear this radical message from sitting members of Congress, that could inspire chaos and it could incite violence and it certainly could disrupt the chain of command. These three members of Congress, I will also add, knew exactly what they were doing. You look at Elissa Slotkin. She's a former member of the CIA. Mark Kelly was a captain in the U.S. Navy. Maggie Goodlander was a naval officer. And notably, she is also the wife of Joe Biden's national security former advisor, Jake Sullivan. And so these members knew what they were doing. They were leading into their credentials as former members of our military, as veterans, as former members of the national security apparatus to signal to people serving under this commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, that you can defy him and you can betray your oath of office. That is a very, very dangerous message, and it perhaps is punishable by law. I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that to the Department of Justice and the Department of War to decide.
But the president has frequently, but Caroline, can I just follow up? The president and the vice president, for that matter, have accused the other side of encouraging political violence. Isn't that exactly what the president is doing when he says that members of Congress should be killed?
Why aren't you talking about what these members of Congress are doing to encourage and incite violence? They are literally saying to 1.3 million active duty service members not to defy the chain of command, not to follow lawful orders.
Actually,
every single
you can refuse an illegal order, which
they're suggesting, Nancy, that the president has given illegal orders, which he has not. Every single order that is given to this United States military by this commander-in-chief and through this chain of command, through the Secretary of War, is lawful. And the courts have proven that. This administration has an unparalleled record at the Supreme Court because we are following the laws. We don't defy court orders. We do things by the books.
And definitely, he called for us to be arrested and tried and hanged. Because he didn't agree with the video we put out. And I think it's really not about the six of us who are the service and veteran members of Congress who put the video together. I think it's about who we are as people and whether we want this to be the tone of our politics. You can disagree with someone without calling for their arrest and hanging. And, I think about our kids watching this and them learning that this is how dialogue, should be, and how terrible that is for our next generation to use that as an example. And I think whoever you are, Democrat, Republican, independent, not interested, whatever, we should all be able to agree that we shouldn't want someone's death if we disagree with them. So I hope it's condemned by people who are on, all sides of issues. And then I think lastly, it certainly felt to me that it was an attempt to intimidate me out of talking about the country that I love and standing up for it.
Is the White House supportive of the...
I'll answer that in a question, but go ahead.
Supportive of the Pentagon's investigation into Mark Kelly, and what do you make of his response that it's just intimidation?
The White House is supportive of the Department of War's investigation into Senator Mark Kelly. And I think what Senator Mark Kelly was actually trying to do was intimidate the 1.3 million active duty service members who are currently serving in our United States Armed Forces with that video that he and his Democrat colleagues put out. Senator Mark Kelly well knows the rules of the military and the respect that one must have for the chain of command, and that all lawful orders are presumed to be legal by our service members. You can't have a functioning military if there is disorder and chaos within the ranks, and that's what these Democrat members were encouraging. It's very clear, and not a single one of them, since they've been pressed by the media, and I'll give you guys credit for that, can point to a single illegal order that this administration has given down, because it does not exist. They knew what they were doing in this video, and Senator Mark Kelly and all of them should be held accountable for that.
In this letter, where you might have thought it was just about the video, we find out it's not just about the video that we made. This is also about other things I've said. But they think I don't have the right to criticize them when they fire admirals and generals. It is specifically in here on the first page. And to say that they have surrounded themselves with a bunch of yes men, I think that's a fact, especially in the White House. So this is over an extended period of time that they want to make it perfectly clear that I am not allowed to say what I think. And that's dangerous. Every other retired service member, like me, or every veteran, every active duty service member, maybe every U.S. citizen is going to say, hey, if they can criticize and stop a United States senator from doing his job and speaking out, what does that mean for the rest of us? So this is really concerning. We're going to do what we can and fight this with every tool that we have. But this is what Secretary Hegseth did in sending this letter is an erosion of every U.S. citizen's First Amendment rights.
What do you make of the timing of, obviously this strike and then your colleagues who put out that video, saying don't follow the orders? Do you think there was some sort of whistleblower that they might have heard or something like that?
No, because they would have said so at the time. I mean, all of them are asked, what specifically are you talking about? And they didn't have a specific. I thought that video was not wise because we're taught this from day one. I spent 30 years in the Air Force, and we're taught you follow lawful orders only. Our oath is to the Constitution. That said, I don't defend the threats of sedition charges and treason charges. I mean, should just cut the spotlight on the six. When you overdo your response, then you take the spotlight off the people who made a mistake.
President Trump's call that some of your colleagues are guilty of sedition and perhaps should get the death penalty as a result of it.
To be honest, the president's remarks I think, indicate a level of instability. It's not just shocking, it's not just offensive, it's bizarre, it is erratic, it's volatile, and I think it indicates a mental state that we should all be questioning right now, whether that's emotional, mental, what have you. It is not normal to make these accusations. It is not normal to invoke these kinds of threats of violence. And it's also not normal to also dramatically misquote, as Carolyn Leavitt was doing, what these members of Congress said. They made a very clear message to U.S. service members, which is that you do not have to obey an illegal order. And I think that's an important message to reiterate because this administration seems to be increasingly trying to go down that path. And for President Trump to respond so strongly with threats of accusations of sedition and threats of violence, I think indicates a nerve that was hit that I think has been responded to in a completely inappropriate way.
Accusing some of your colleagues of seditious conspiracy. Do you think his rhetoric went a little bit too far, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, I don't think there's any place for that. I think it's unacceptable. I mean, I didn't like the video either. I think that if you think an order is illegal, the way that you, challenge it is in the court of law and have it adjudicated. You don't encourage insubordination among our troops, but I was not happy with it on either side.
Yeah. And so what do you think the president should have done differently in that case?
I mean, that rhetoric is not acceptable. That's not what I certainly would have used. I don't think there's any place for it.
I'll say this for the guy. While he's never seemed to do much else right, for most of Donald Trump's career, bullying people has worked out for him. But not now. Because I won't let it happen. The American people won't let it happen. President Trump is trying to silence me, threatening to kill me for saying what is true. And he sent his Secretary of Defense after me. And it's not going to work. Here's how we got here. A week and a half ago, Senator Slotkin and I, along with others who also served in the military and the intelligence communities, we released a video with a simple message to service members that they must refuse illegal orders. Nothing was controversial about that. Everyone must follow the law. No one may break the law. This is pretty basic stuff. Seeing that video, here's how any other president would have responded. They would have said 2 words, of course. But that's not how this president responded. We've become so accustomed to Donald Trump's behavior that it is worth emphasizing. The President of the United States said that 2 U.S. senators and 4 members of the House of Representatives should be arrested, hanged, executed for something we said, for something that is true.
Well, as you heard last night at the direction of President Trump, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro attempted to persuade a grand jury to indict us on criminal charges. If things had gone a different way, we'd be preparing for arrest. Fortunately, her attempt failed, and a group of anonymous Americans upheld the rule of law and determined that this case should not proceed. Just to review the bidding, this started with a 90-second video in November that a group of us organized, all of us with military and service backgrounds, simply restating the law in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, that military members had a duty to refuse illegal orders. We said nothing more than everyone from Secretary Pete Hegseth and Attorney General Pam Bondi have said themselves out of their own mouths. For that, President Trump said that we should be investigated, arrested, and ultimately hanged. And that's exactly what he had Pirro and Bondi do yesterday. They had opened an inquiry in December, they carried it forward in January, and when we refused to sit for a voluntary interview, in 7 days' time, they went in front of a grand jury. But to be clear, this is not about the content of this one video. Let's call it for what it is. The president is using our justice system to weaponize against his perceived enemies.
Yesterday, we saw the great lengths that Donald Trump and his administration will go to abuse power in order to silence and intimidate anyone who disagrees with them. We learned through the media that federal prosecutors tried
and failed to get an indictment of us from a grand jury. This is outrageous. I want to be clear about something. This is not a good news story. This is a story about how Donald Trump and his cronies are trying to break our system in order to silence anyone who lawfully speaks out against them. And to send a signal to every American that they better think twice before they speak out, or they might be next. I want to emphasize this because it's important. Federal prosecutors went to a grand jury to seek criminal charges against members of the United States Senate for something we said. They tried to have us charged and thrown into jail because we said something that they didn't like, because we repeated what the law actually is. This happened here. This is straight from the authoritarian playbook. This did not happen in Russia or China. In Russia and China, we see these things. This didn't happen decades ago. It happened less than a mile from this building in the United States of America yesterday. And it was carried out by a federal prosecutor who got unanimous Republican support in August. It was authorized by an attorney general who is serving as the president's personal attack dog. Folks, this is the master alarm flashing for our democracy. It is threatening the very foundation of our system, that we have a right to free speech, to lawfully speak out and protest our government without fear of retaliation.